Well, good morning to you and the viewers at home, coming to you live from Pretoria, where a DA leader, along with the DA, has concluded a picket outside one of the cabinet homes, or state homes rather, that is utilized by members of the executive while they're in office. The DA is challenging the ministerial handbook and the perks it affords members of the executive, in its contrast rather to the lifestyle or quality of life of ordinary South Africans like me and you. They've highlighted the cabinet perks and said that they're going to be bringing a cabinet perks bill which will address this issue of this exorbitant lifestyle of ministers, MECs, premiers, etc. while they're in office, and ensure that all of these unnecessary expenses are dealt with once they describe themselves in government. I'm just going to bring in Mr. Steenhuisen due to the time limit that we have this morning to discuss some of these issues. You've stated in your address that ministers are occupying about 97 mansions in Cape Town and Pretoria as a whole, and you've addressed this cabinet perks bill that you want to bring to Parliament. Are some of the measures you're looking at is moving Parliament to Pretoria, where all ministers are currently occupying their offices? What are some of the measures you're looking at?
Well, first of all is to cut the perks, particularly the stuff like free generators, free electricity, free water, the exorbitant money we're spending on cars and these homes, R1 billion a year on the homes alone. We're saying in the current South African context of 42% unemployment and 30 million people living below the poverty line, this is grotesque. So we would propose moving to a system of a subsidy rather than simply providing two different homes, and the ministers would choose. Whether Parliament moves or not is going to be a matter of finances. Whether you're able to replicate what is in Parliament at the moment in another city, I think Treasury's already done the numbers. It's shown that it's very expensive and they don't have the money for that. So Parliament is in Cape Town for the time being. There's not much we can do with that. It requires a constitutional amendment, but I think that we can, in the meantime, cut the perks.
And talk us through this bill that you'll be presenting. What are some of the key issues you're going to address? You've highlighted that while South Africans are without water, these homes have an unlimited supply. Electricity is not cut off in these homes. What are some of these perks?
Well, the perks are the travel perks, the huge amount of money spent on vehicles, the huge amount of money spent on staff for these particular ministers, the huge amount of money spent on maintaining these huge multi-million rand mansions here. These are all excessive and need to be cut dramatically. We would like the bill to look specifically at bringing transparency around the ministerial handbook, which currently has no oversight whatsoever, because we don't have a presidency oversight committee, and that should be one of the things that committee does, is goes through that ministerial handbook regularly to ensure that it's not being abused. Currently, the president can write whatever he wants in there under the cover of darkness, as we saw this last year, where he simply added in generators and all these things as perks, and inverters and all these things. And ordinary South Africans are left to pick up the tab for these things in their own homes. Why shouldn't ministers?
Often when the DA brings up some of these issues, such as the catered deployment, and now you bring in this cabinet perks bill, often some people would like to highlight that in where you govern, there are benefits as well. What is your response to that?
Well, in Tshwane, when we got into government, we sold the mayoral house. There's only one official residence in the Western Cape, and that's Leeuwenhof, and it's a public works heritage building. It belongs. None of the MECs in the Western Cape are provided with mansions or any of the like. They have precisely the model that we are suggesting should be done, where there's a subsidy system and you have to live in an ordinary suburb amongst ordinary South Africans. Yes, of course, you're entitled to security, but it must be commensurate to the threat, and certainly not to the excess that we're seeing, where over R8 billion a year is being spent on keeping our president and his cabinet safe.
And should the DA enjoy governance at a national level, what happens to these ministerial homes?
It's going to be for sale. We're going to put a big for sale sign outside it, like we did in Tshwane, and we're going to make sure that this here is sold off and the money spent on the people of South Africa, not on the politicians.
All right, thank you very much. That was DA leader John Steenhuisen addressing what he terms the cabinet world and the real world that South Africans live in. They're trying to lessen that gap between the quality of life between the executive and ordinary South Africans, considering the plight of many South Africans in this country right now who are enduring rolling blackouts, don't have water, don't have housing, lack of education, etc. Over to you in studio.